Lost in an explosion of tiny pieces of metal, a shower of aluminum foil. No, that's not right. It's a single piece of aluminum, the housing of a giant orbiting space-time piece, a clock in the air. Across the room I see a lab-coated man seated at a bank of computer monitors, working the knobs on a sprawling control board. The central machinery is familiar. Could it be? Yes, it's Seymour Cray's 6600, 350,000 transistors and one metal plaque, property of Azona International. On one of the dual round screens I recognize downtown Stranger's Rest. Frederiksbad Street is littered with still glowing remains of extinguished torches. The albino-fleshed, red-mouthed Dr. Morel gazes upon me. Do I see a malevolent gleam in his eye? No, just the reflection of a blue-green computer readout flashing 6:47 a.m. And the famous Adolfo Morel, I say, working on Azona's next new ad campaign. I see mineral water for the apocalypse, perhaps an elixir for revelatory. I cast about for the right phrase, but the words will not come. Something is wrong. The words orbit around me, detached and paralyzed, exiled and numbed by the habit of self-grief. I see another metallic snake, this one affixed to my navel. I want to pull it out, but I can't seem to make my hands work. Something is stopping me. I am blocked by cloth. I am encased in a black cloth sack. I stare out through two holes, a deep sense of separation and dejection, of dizziness and disorientation, suddenly transcended by the scent of roses, mystic icons weeping blood, statues moving of their own accord, a cloud formation in the shape of a well-known corporate logo emitting a bolt of blinding white light. I try to speak, but my mouth doesn't work either. No use fighting it, Dr. Morel says. It's all in the script, all premeditated melancholy journalist turned celebrity messiah, though not looking quite so celebrated tonight, Mr. Leach. No, not so celebrated at all. I managed a nod from within the descended aura of abstraction, caught up in a swirling fog of broken glass and fire trucks and blood and smoke. The lab-coated man has turned his back on the monitors, focused squarely on me. He's precisely as advertised, he remarks, his countenance suggestive of a young Albert Einstein. An authentic neurotic with free-flowing discharge. What's that, I ask? Your palms. In the initial draft, the stranger wrote you as astigmatic. The black sack is now gone, so I can see myself again. Sure enough, my hands are bleeding. We read all about you in the New York Agenda, Dr. Morel says. What a creation, young Einstein marveled. He turns to Morel. Look at this face, he adds. No scar. I'm right here, you know, I complain. My mouth is loosening up a bit, but I'm still struggling to unplug the metallic cable from my navel. You might try talking as if... But it's no good. My powers of speech are still failing. The film has broken inside me. The projection bulb is melting the cellular. I find myself spinning heavenward through a shower of bleeding icons and rose petals and lightning bolts. Morel tells me about the future, the world after my rebirth, as the world first privately owned and operated. Life will be strictly controlled through the imposition of an entire collection of electronic manuscript requirements. The wise ones will subject residents to electronic boulevard search and seizure by skinless auditors who will wear tin stars affixed to their erect DNA delivery organ. The goal is total sexual demoralization. Official notations will be entered into the genetic ledger, and those without the proper notations will be subject to indefinite nude incarceration in ashen-walled prisons comprised of vanishing brick and mortar, an uncertain state of affairs that will inevitably result in charges of jailbreak. The problem will be defined as a noxious chemical imbalance, of course, treated with fluoride 9, so as you can unmistakably comprehend, the industrial options are infinite. In bed, at home, alone. Despite Jack's best arguments, I decide to stay in my first night without family. I am committed to getting some much-needed sleep. Tonight I will be good, but sleep will not come. How can it? Goodness is a lie. I am experiencing a crushing depression. I seek sleep for escape, not rejuvenation. What can I say? Maybe I got old. Too many trips to Cece's Pizza, too many Barney reruns. I'm too much the corny, wisecracking dad, or maybe I'm not. Listen once again to the hollow slam of the tailgate of Allison's Volvo station wagon, its rear bumper disappearing around the curve at the end of the street, her fist slamming on the pantry door while I kneel in the tiny closet, cleaning up a broken bottle, a phone slamming in its receiver, seemingly forever. Everything I contemplate is wretched and disconsolate. This is a world of death and shadows. Urine-tinted vapors, lamps illuminate the desolation. A terrain of crumbling failure somewhere near the land of the dead. Devalued investment real estate, an old apartment complex. Several of the buildings appear to be vacated, condemned, surrounded by cyclone fencing. Doorways and windows covered in warped plywood. Muffled voices and ominous rumblings escape from ghost units. Wreckage of miserable depravity. Squander of comatose electrical wires swollen and burned out. Thick vines consuming the extinguished shell of a charred Camaro. Snaking up through jagged holes in the rusted floorboards and spring naked seat cushion, gripping the skeletal body tight to the crumbling asphalt under the dead, bitter light of the vapor lamps. Insects and nocturnal birds swarm overhead, darting in and out of the urine glow. A night snake ripple across the swimming pool, slimed over with emerald scum. Bankrupt patio, dried stems, giant thistles, and sunflowers sprouting cracked sidewalks. An emaciated feral cat stalks its shadow, slinking against a ruined wall marked with spray paint gang rumors. And then something immoral and repugnant gazing back in serious dread. I know this strange creature, it's me, my reflection caught in the rearview mirror. A dream from my early 20s, I am bitten by a winged demon transforming me into a hell's angel. I join a band of these pitiful creatures flying through the night. We are circling a house, or perhaps a town, then I realize that dawn is approaching. We must leave, go down to the underworld to escape the rising sun. I am sad because I realize I can never again be part of the waking daylight world. I fly with the evil ones now, life without oxygen containers and ivy, prepared for satin-drawn coffin. Arms folded like bat wings, lips stitched together in a silent scream. I open my nightstand drawer, Jack's porn gear, conveniently stashed here at his urging. Sometime during the next 2 weeks you may need to let your dog run, explain. I read the label on the box patches. OFD, Movable Pro 890, Instantaneous VI cohort. This is the new Frames CE, a slimmed down version of Frames operating designed just for handhelds. I tell you, lots of dream jockeys trash talk Frames CE, noting that it can't handle high-speed multi-sensory recollection or run the latest 64-bit dreamware. But that's not what it was designed for. Frames CE is for going on-beam, on the fly. I've been lusting after this new system ever since I'd read about the instant-on capability. You can do a couple of minutes of on-beam creating without first waiting for the usual 5-minute Frames boot up. My favorite VI of all time is the old Zandy DP2, a bulky wristwatch-styled interface that boots instantly from ROM. It was, and still is, perfect for dream writing. The DP2 can hold enough neural charge for 10 hours of uninterrupted operation, quite an improvement over the 2 or 3 hour charge of most today's transdermal patches. Of course, there is a trade-off. The DP2's implant canvas is hopelessly outdated and crude, really nothing more than charcoal sketches. But sometimes that's enough. I unwrap a thumbnail-sized patch and slap it on my forehead, clip on the transceiver titanium nice to my left earlobe and plug the other end into the wireless card. Then I switch on the PDA and plug in, instead of the usual hypnagogic flares and random RV-DOS code, a boot up process, the implant canvas flashes a copyright, another invention of Morel, and immediately jumps to the exogrid in full 3D, alive and in living dream color. In the distance, rhythmic tribal drumming and vague chanting, a large quantity of inconsequential imagery, a distracting leafy blur of banana trees and elephant ears, and tropical cartoon-like visions of macaws and jungle cats. I feel a sudden wave of nausea. This program is lousy with gyms and wee, but by closing my eyes and concentrating on the tone and the rhythm of the drumming and the chanting, the queasiness passes. The jungle images surge and become even more vivid, flying over landscapes past rhythmic African prototype warriors who look heavenwards as I zoom past, and I see something else, a bright rectangular entity floating in the distance, blazing like the sun. This aerial entity possesses within it a sort of stage, no, a screen. It is a drive-in movie theater, and the show is already playing. I am still too far away to make out all of the action, but it occurs to me, in that strange way knowledge sometimes just seems to come to you in the dreamscape, that my judgments or expressions verbalized in my brain are representing themselves on the movie screen. I am the director of my own movie. I realize I am still watching all of this on the inside of my eyelids, and I wonder if this is a sort of dream within a dream. dream. So I decide to open my eyes. The movie screen is still present, but it is now anchored firmly to the ground on giant metal legs, and instead of flying, I am at the wheel of my old 1970 Cutlass convertible, parked at the Astro Drive-In. We're back in the old hydrocarbon age, a crescent moon and the evening star shining bright against the purple twilight sky of 1979 on or about the last night of my youth. Despite the impossible visual angle, I can see through the sheet metal fencing to the marquee out front. I understand that the feature presentation is supposed to be an urban cowboy, one of the last movies I ever saw at the Astro, but for some reason I cannot actually see this movie, a phenomenon that suggests the central part of my retina has been burned away, the result of gazing too long into the dazzling light of original experience. And then I am in the examination room. They are studying. Clinical doomed ceiling, grey, white walls, smooth sleek varnish, unbroken walls, gaunt metallic hallways and curved hallways, voluminous medical equipment on wheeled carts and affixed to floor-to-ceiling windows. In the corner, a terrestrial observer, an old man in a thick cardigan sweater and wrinkled hands endlessly working over a red potato. I am here, and I am far away, in the downtown of a small Texas town. It is morning, nobody on the street. I am in a store, perhaps with my family. I leave by purchase a rolled-up poster. I take it to a storefront a few doors down. This is my business. Perhaps a furniture store, maybe a cafe. It is done up in cowboy decor. I unroll the poster, which I see is also in a cowboy theme. The poster is long and skinny, more like a scroll. I look around for a suitable place to hang it. Then I am startled to see that I am not alone. A woman is sitting in a black vinyl recliner, slumped deep in the cool dark cushions as if asleep. And perhaps she has been sleeping, but now she is fully awake, looking at me. Then I recognize her. She is Nanny, my great-grandmother who died 30 years ago. I can't believe it. Nanny back from the dead. I look into her face, study her countenance. It's her all right. She looks good too, maybe in her 60s. She does not appear ancient and sickly like I remember her at the last time I saw her at the nursing home a few weeks before she died. You're so pretty and young, I tell her. She thanks me and says, I have some things to tell you, both good and bad, so pull a chair and sit beside me. I do as she asks and sit in front of her, knee to knee, but I don't wait for her to talk. She has information I wish to acquire. Is there a heaven? I ask. Oh yes, and it's wonderful. You don't earn your way up there. Everyone can go. Oh, I'm so happy, I tell her, and I mean it too, because I'm a doubter. So it is nice to have confirmation of the unconfirmable, of someone who has seen heaven firsthand. Then she disappears, but somehow I know she is still there, and I know this is not good. Still I must proceed. Now tell me the bad, I say. What's been troubling you? Suddenly I am propelled upward toward the ceiling, tossed skyward as if by an unseen hand. Then I fall to the floor. Perhaps this visitor is not Nanny at all. Time to escape. I run for the door. I decide the lights are already turned off, so all I need to do is lock the door and return to the safe of my family at the nearby store. Only I can't get the door to latch. I've set the doorknob button to lock, but the door will not hold. I even tear away some foam weather stripping that I think may be the problem. Still no luck. Then I glance back inside the store for one final look. A vinyl restaurant chair is moving about all by itself, and I know immediately it is being propelled by a demonic force. So that is it. My store is really a diner for demons. Laid out on an operating table, strapped down like a dogfish ready for dissection. A lighted arm-like device wielding piercing instruments of surgical steel performs the extraction of shattering of bones, the dissection of organs, the suction tube extraction of ectoplasm from the DNA delivery organ. Then organs and bones are baked, recalibrated and reinstalled, allowing me to unconscionably pull in transmissions from distant galaxies within and detect the distortion created by strange forces without. Reassembled, I rise from the table and glimpse my reflection in the polished metal walls. I appear exactly as before. The ordeal leaves no unseen marks or scars, and yet something has changed. I view the future as contained in glowing drawers of human-insect hybrid fetuses, the children of a hidden planet. the children of a hidden planet that surround the subject in an alien trip, the attraction of the borderland and the epic film. The image is blinding, almost beyond comprehension, then the narrative voiceover. The motion picture offers a place where self-absorption can inflict the first wound, a psychic wound in the heart of the aggressive drama of the mind, a moviegoer internalized by his own continuity. In the rhetoric of violence and exploitation ensues. The church that lies somewhere to the east is rediscovered, but in ruins. Bitterness and loneliness, killer, negator, scourge, lost in despair. A modern sense of exile is projected onto the screen of the past, where convention and tradition conspire to heighten the constriction of life, estranging us from the emotional life. His emotions do not belong to him, rather they belong to a stranger, a double, who is oddly familiar in his recapitulation of experience, psychically wounded, a visual rumor of limitation and pride, rendered impotent and furious, violence in the stranger, an agonizing rage engulfed in guilt or fear. I'm told alien abductions are the most commonly selected dramatic scenarios of on-beam travelers in the collective unconscious. In my case, I was drawn to 1950s B-movie sci-fi imagery as an alternative to the lucid technical and systematic principles of our age, a familiar yet entirely novel direction that can be looked upon as the outward amplification of an inner legend. Through the archetype of the alien, I firmly believe we can pursue the interpretation of reality as a subject of general story believability, and then to proceed to, what's that? Oh, what? Oh, well, that is interesting that you are most drawn to the sexual imagery. Perhaps pornography is my special gift. As for you being La, well, yes, I must admit that the young woman on the neighboring islands bears a great symbolic resemblance to you in high school. As I gazed upon her, I did genuinely consider what it would be like to have you again in the back seat of the Cutlass, this time enthusiastically penetrating your membrane, expelling my ectoplasm inside you, filling you with my spirit. However, you never allowed me to express my feelings in quite that way. You were always the nice girl. But then came last year, when we met again, and you promised we would run away together. Still, you do not remember? That is too bad, for a claim of virginity rules you out as the muse. Law is neither virgin nor whore. She is a being of the unconscious, a tour guide inside the internal existence, an arbitrator of waking world awareness, of the often ambiguous landmarks and residents of inner reality. She assists in the investigation of significance and is the inspiration of and for the existence of the movie director. In short, the muse is the escort through and at the same time a personification of the land of the dead. She is always trying to escape this ghost terrain, to take up residence in the sunshine of the waking world. One of the ways the muse attempts to do this is by projecting herself onto the real women in my life. Unconsciously, I am forever attempting to compel women like you to become a living host for my muse, the carrier of my own inner world, a membrane to be penetrated, an external receptor for the expulsion of the internal ectoplasm of visionary experience. I am an odious being, of course. I should see people for who they really are, not for their resemblance to some inner aspect of myself. So one of the jobs I have given myself for the second half of my life is to work hard at recognizing this projecting as soon as it occurs. I must cut the power of the projector and send the muse back inside my head, where all imagery beings belong. And yet I cannot do so when it comes to you, my love. You would make a highly desirable muse. According to the cinematic images of my dreams, you are the perfect physical host. I have already begun to animate the muse inside you. In the language of B-movie sci-fi, I am Dr. Frankenstein, and you are my artificially created bride, assembled from the body parts of unearthed from my own unconscious. If you will voluntarily enter my dungeon lab and submit yourself to the final stage of the transformation, the animating process will be nearly effortless. Granted, the price will be high. Most likely, you will quickly tire of being a psychological archetype. You will say enough and walk away. That is for the best, because people should not be archetypes. But if you do not walk away, well, the muse will totally consume you. She will induce you to surrender your unique individuality. You will be compelled to lead me down into the darkness, through the creative process, deep into the land of the dead. I will be forever bending you over in the hot shower, penetrating your membrane with my DNA delivery organ, expelling my ectoplasm inside you, filling you with my spirit. Would that be so bad? Compliments, adoration, inspiration? I will demand it all, and still I will always be questioning the situation. Is she really my muse? Can it be there is still some unconscious remnant of the individuality of the former owner of this body? What was her name again? You will be a mere receptacle, which is to say no longer you at all. In the end, the muse will destroy us both. Hey, I think I just outlined the concept for my next movie. Can you believe it? The muse strikes again. So perhaps you are the muse after all. In light of this revelation, I am going to skip ahead in the narrative and tell you about the time the son of the muse, our love child, tried to murder me. Law came to visit again last night, but the visitation does not occur here on the island. Somehow we are at the home of Allison's parents, where I am cleaning up after the burglary that preceded the big road trip. It is not pleasant. I am about to lower the garage door when I hear a crash inside the house. A wave of fear washes over me, sends my stomach into somersaults. Could the burglars still be inside? And then I hear a cry, a woman's voice. How dangerous can that be? Hello, are you okay? I ask. No answer, then another crash, apparently from Allison's old bedroom. My heart is pounding, but somehow I find the courage to creep down the hall, past family photos and framed elementary school report cards. I rip open the door and find Cinnamon sprawled across the eyelet bedspread. She is lying on her side, one hand propping up against her head and the other resting on her hip, wearing nothing but the dark tan and a smile. My arms go limp. I drop the hammer. Sorry about the racket, she says. I accidentally knocked over a stack of shoe boxes. She must really like shoes. Allison's definitely into fashion. Then she rolls onto her stomach and I see that she is not Cinnamon at all. She is La. She kicks a foot up behind her as if relaxing at the beach. Indeed, hanging over the headboard is a lake painting Allison did in high school. There is boat with a fisherman looking toward a pair of sharply peaked mountains in the background. I try not to share. I'm guessing the loot is already gone, I say, hours ago. How about I call the police? I'll just tell them what you did to the piano and the painting. Like they'd believe you. What do you care anyway? She is right, I don't care. La swings her legs over the edge of the bed and pulls on one of Allison's old bathrobes, an artifact from high school. Now it's time for your gift, she says. My gift? But then, why did she put on the robe? From under the bed, she retrieves an old laptop computer. My eye immediately lands on the corporate logo, the venerated icon. Is that a Macintosh portable? She explains. The 5126, the backlit model? It will be perfect for your writing, see? It's been restored to mint condition. She sits it on the bed, flips open the lid, and hits the power button. It immediately clicks to life. It's got the rebuilt battery, she explains, and the 8 meg PDS slot RAM card from Dynamic Engineering. As it finishes booting, I gaze up into the system screen, glowing pale in the deepening twilight. It's got the hard drive upgrade kit too, I ask. That's right, I replaced the 40 meg Connor with the 500 meg PowerBook SCSI drive. It's formatted and loaded with Mac OS 7.01. I pick up the humming computer, hold it in front of me. Where did you get this? I ask. You like it? I like it. It's fantastic. I've heard of Japanese collectors who will pay upwards of $1,000 for a 5126 in this condition, but why? Suddenly the computer begins to change in my hands. The white plastic case darkens to a light bronze flesh tone. Arms and legs sprout from the various serial ports. It is becoming a doll, but it's not a nice one. This is a homicidal Chucky doll, writhing and struggling in my hands, its face twisted in hate. What is it? I asked, trying to keep my fingers away from the snapping jaws. A reincarnated unkind being. I put my hands around the doll's neck and squeeze, but that just makes it fight harder. I try to bite it, trying to bite me. This Chucky wants more than a taste. He wants me dead. Sometimes he goes too far, she remarks, but he's always the first to admit it. Quick, pick up the hammer, smash its skull. La shakes her head. We must positively integrate your destructive impulses, not indulge them. Smash it now, I repeat. He just needs attention. He needs love. Love? It's a killer. But he's our baby. And then the hammer is in my hand. I strike the psychotic computer again and again, splintered plastic, shattered microchips, a river of teeth, a raging current of broken incisors, saliva, blood, and other bodily emission. Don't I feel good now? I know you are familiar with the story, everyone is, but it's all from the news, media, all lies. Before we go any further, you'll need to understand what happened the night of my alien abduction scenario from my perspective. Here's the true story. I experienced an apocalyptic vision, not my first, but it was perhaps my most important. This is one that led me to create my famous tagline, here's one way the world ends. Here's one way the world ends. I'm in New Louisiana, walking east along the El Camino Real towards Fort Jessup, the capital of the land of the dead. I come out of the ancient turpentine mist and the dripping Spanish moss and the pines and find myself at Trinity Baptist Church, the same one my grandparents belonged to, and many of my relations still do. As I approach, I am amazed to see that next door the church is an old white chapel I remember from my childhood. I have not seen it in years. It should not be there, but it is. What a find! I look inside, it is just as I remember. The last attendance figures are still on the little sign at the front of the church. It is like a time capsule. But all is not well. The front of the building is gone, sliced off like a piece of cheese. The pulpit and the pews are all in place, but no, that's not right, because I can see into the basement. It is flooded with water, creating a sort of pool. A concrete ramp disappears into the water, suggestive of a boat ramp at the lake. From out of the ruins I am greeted by an old man in a plaid flannel shirt and a short, neatly trimmed beard. I learn that he is a former pastor at the church, now retired. He tells me he is in the process of restoring the old chapel, but after he took off the front of the building it rained and the basement filled with water. I am sad, for I realize that the church had been safe all these years, but due to his ill-timed restoration efforts it is now in danger of total destruction. Surely the cost of repairing the water damage is beyond the means of this old man. I am happy that I have rediscovered the old church, which I thought to have been demolished decades ago. At least I am seeing it for the last time. A joy flowered in difficulty. A car arrives. It is my wife and our 2 sons. They are here to pick me up so we can continue at the last couple of miles to my grandparents' old house, where the Leaches hold their annual family reunion. I suggest we walk the last stretch. Allison is skeptical, however she agrees to my plan. We walk a bit, but soon I become disoriented. The route does not look the same on foot. I take the wrong road, and we wind up in a hot, deserted stretch of country. It has been denuded of the lush pine forest that dominates the area. The boys begin to complain about the heat. They are thirsty. Allison remains silent, furious, and I am overwhelmed by the nausea of failure. One more broken attempt to transcend the everyday. Morning, face smashed against the gravel walkway, I awaken to the temperate nudge of a boot to rib cage. Sorry, thought you were dead. The boot belongs to Sam Cunningham, precinct number 3, county constable, and perhaps the last person I want to find sleeping on the front steps of my old derelict Strangers Rest Baptist Church. And maybe I'm not really here. Maybe I'm still on beam. I touch my forehead and hope vanishes. The VI patch is gone. Will he arrest me? I see the headline in my own paper, no less. Reporter arrested for vagrancy, trespassing. Certainly the state of affairs does not appear promising, but there is another reason he might wish to haul me in. I have written unfavorably about him. The previous fall the county commissioners cut Cunningham's constabulary budget from $42,728 to $15,006, and his salary from $33,000 to $9,000 because of the accusations by the precinct number 3 justice of the peace Hubert Skinner and some residents that he'd quit serving civil papers. That didn't merit more than a news brief in the Northeast Extra, but this story came soon thereafter. Skinner locked Cunningham out of the office they shared on Fredericksbad Street. The judge said the constable and his deputies had a habit of going through his files, so he had Cunningham office dismantled and its contents stashed in the old county jail. Now that was a good story. They even put it on the wires. It appeared in the papers all over the country. Sam was a coast-to-coast joke. In all fairness to Sam, he never complained to me, but I did receive an anonymous letter, a copy of the story and the Bill of Rights. The passage about freedom of press had been highlighted with an orange marker. Great to see you, Sam says, helping me to my feet, looking me over. His hands work my shoulders, feel my bones. Me in my rumpled golf shirt and khakis, blood-filled eyes, and gravel pressed into my neck. He in his starched round uniform, shiny brown ropers, and .357 Magnum. You okay? He asks. You don't look good. I can't believe it. He is even concerned about my appearance. But he won't be arresting me after all. Oh, there's nothing like friends. I'm fine, just a little tired. He's not here today. Who? The new owner. I didn't know there was one. Yeah, he's a movie director or something. Been filling the place up with all kinds of lights and cameras and film gear. He even had the electric company put in a new transformer. He's running 440 volts. Look at the old chapel. From the outside, nothing seems to have changed. The heavy front door are still still chained, padlocked. The faded metal for sale sign is still stapled to the white clapboards. Chimney Swifts is still darting in and out of the Louvre belfry. Everything is just as it had been for the past 5 years, ever since the congregation of the Strangers' Rest Baptist Church decided to drop the Baptist for a .com moniker and move away from their historic property of Frederiksbad Street. Now their home is out on a forlorn treeless stretch of Interstate 35W in a giant metal warehouse of a sanctuary, a combination of gas station, exogrid, church featuring a multimedia stage for contemporary praise music and the pastor's talk points and restaurant-style beepers to keep parents in touch with the nursery. These keepers of the deity have no interest in finding the church that lies somewhere to the east. So really, great to see you, Sam says, still feeling my bones. Yeah, me too, but what do you want? I've got a story you might be interested in. Ah, yes, the price of staying out of jail. Tell me about it. You know, the street dance on Saturday? I know. It is to be a fundraiser to save the Silver Spur, the empty rock shell of an Old West saloon circa 1880, from the days of the when Strangers' Rest was a rowdy cattle town. The corner property is for sale for $60,000, but of course the big expense will be the restoration, a couple of million at least. So Strangers' Rest has called in the big gun, Cowboy Roy, a singing cowboy from the 1950s who owned a ranch on the edge of town. He is resurrecting his old band, the Rambling Rangers, for a live broadcast on the local national public radio affiliate. So, of course, as town marshal, I'm in charge of crown control of security, but there's going to be like hundreds of people. I can't control them all by myself, right? Right. And I'm still out of jail, so I'm going to round up a posse. A what? Yeah, I'm going to have my own posse, like on Gunsmoke. I'm going to deputize some of the local citizens. You can do that? I called the Attorney General's office in Austin. They gave me the okay. A posse in Strangers' Rest, probably the first time since cowboy days. You know, that is a good story. You could even be one of my deputies. Me? Absolutely. You live here. You pay taxes, a reporter with a badge. You can ride a horse too if you can get one. I've even let you carry a shotgun. We set up a time and place for the interview. And a photo? Sam asked. Of course. After all, I'll be the deputy town marshal. Okay then, I'll see you next. Hey, where's your car? What? Oh, I walk. You want to ride home? He jerks his thumb back over his shoulder toward a dusty old Toyota bubble top. Undercover? Yup. Probably the only constable in Texas who has a patrol car in his own car. Who has to patrol in his own car. No, I'll just walk back. You still don't look so hot. I'm fine. See you tomorrow. I'll bring your badge and my shotgun. Poor Sam. The story of his fall from grace is even worse that I have presented. After the contents of his office were locked up in the old country jail, the commissioners assigned Sam's duties to a deputy constable from another precinct, but the emasculated constable still wanted to prove himself, so he continued to work at his reduced rate of pay. He even tried to win over townsfolk by agreeing to take on the non-paying job of town marshal. At least it meant he'd have a patrol car, but that didn't last long. Either the city council voted to curb it rather than raise taxes to continue its operation. They parked it in the Mayor Pro Tem's backyard, the town's most expensive Dutch catcher. That gave me another great story. Poor Sam. Walking Frederiksbad Street, a tree-lined residential street lined, little changed since the 1930s. I moved in and out of the shade the morning sun makes through the trees, enjoying the view. There's a mix of craftsman-inspired bungalows, simple half-porch, the center gable cottages, and my favorite, a one-story red brick Tudor with an S-shaped drive, vine-covered porte-cochere, and a red barn out back. An old woman with a hand trowel and floppy straw hat works the front flower bed, tending her elephant ears and flocks. Allison and I used to covet the place. We'd drive by every week hoping to see a for sale sign. The old folks would just die. They outlasted us, forcing us to the new subdivision where we had Our choice of 3 grades of carpet and a premium waterfront lot. I feel a bit shaky, a wave of nausea building in the humid morning air, but something is not right. I see patches of snow and white ice on some of the roofs. The sunlight is thawing this white which flows off a high stretch Tudor roof in the manner of a mountain waterfall. A few blocks later, an unusual house catches my eye. It looks like a tower supporting a saucer-like structure, a UFO home. How did it get there? In downtown Stranger's Rest. The house resembles a miniature version of the Tower of Americas in San Antonio. The shaft of the tower is made of glass and contains a spiral staircase. Doesn't look much like a house at all. Next I spot an even more dramatic example of the UFO style. No tower, but a much larger saucer structure, which is surrounded by a porch. I've seen this place before. In a dream, I am with a companion, and we wish to have a closer look at this house, which is clearly a significant piece of architecture. Someone is in front of us, pushing a cart or baby stroller. They too are trying to get a closer look. It is twilight and lights are already on inside the house, intensifying the UFO effect. The people in front of us walk onto the porch, its ceiling dimly lit by flush-mounted light panels, and look inside a window. The residents are inside eating dinner, and they are understandably unhappy about this intrusion. I cannot hear what they say, but the meaning is clear. They send the intruders away, so we leave too without looking inside or even seeing anything else the outside of the house. Clearly this place is not for me. My nausea incubates in the next block. A collection of low-slung 50s ranch houses with attached carports and big AC units on concrete slabs. No need to plant trees when you've got central air. I raise a hand to wipe the sweat from my forehead and realize for the first time that the VI patch is gone. How did I get from my bedroom to downtown Stranger's Rest? I squint into the bright sun, the sweat now pouring from off my forehead. It is hard to concentrate. My stomach feels like curdled milk, overwhelmed by the nausea of failure. No way I will make it the mile or so to my house. If only I can get to the Circle L, sit down in a cool vinyl booth near the cold cases and enjoy a carton of orange. I turn onto Frederiksbad Street, the Circle L almost in view. But a half block later it becomes clear I won't make it. I sit down in front of a vacant lot against a power pole. The scent of black crude somehow settles my stomach. I close my eyes just for a moment, but there is no time to rest. I must flee. I am running down a freshly paved residential street, the scent of the black crude filling my nostrils. A police car in pursuit, but he can't catch me. Adrenaline pumping, I am running so fast that my feet almost leave the ground. I come to a dead end, leap over the barricade like an Olympic star. Leaving the police car far behind, I hide in dark undergrowth, alone in the twilight shadows, and yet I am not alone. I have an accomplice, a stranger. We cannot be seen together. They'll be expecting that. We must split up, go our own ways. Wait 5 minutes, then take off, I tell the man as I sprint for the next street over. It is evening now, and the neighborhood is empty. Everyone is inside for the night. I come to a cross street, the last barrier before I get home, and I see a police car, and a few hundred yards away, he has pulled over a minivan, giving the driver a ticket. With a little luck, I should be able to cross the street unseen, but I have no luck. Suddenly cars begin to appear. They are coming from both directions. The speed limit is about 40 and the cars are following each other very closely. There is no opportunity to squeeze between cars and cross the road. Then a car stops in the middle of the road and the traffic begins to pass slowly on the shoulder. This is my chance. I bolt between 2 cars, just missing their bumper. I've made it, but then out of the shadows comes the policeman. He is right behind me, too close for me to get away. He takes me down in a flying tackle and we crash into a side yard filled with old building materials, salvaged French doors, painted pine moldings and beaded boards, and yellow Texas star bricks edged in dusty, crumbling mortar. The homeowner is there too, and I say that I am being attacked, not realizing my attacker is really a policeman. He jumps to my aid, pinning the officer to the ground. Thanks, I say as I run towards the alley. Just hold him for 5 minutes, that's all I need. Then I throw myself through the plate glass window like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible and escape to the little town's historic central business district. This is no escape either. Everyone has heard of me, the fugitive. A librarian I know tells the crowd that they should give me a chance to explain myself, but her words fail on unsympathetic fall on unsympathetic ears. They're out to get me, a misunderstood creature pursued by torch-wielding peasants. A group of Boy Scouts in khaki uniforms with red neckerchiefs swarm me, little hands grabbing all my clothes. One of the older boys has a syringe, presumably filled with some barbiturate that will make me easier to apprehend, that even without the injection they will surely win. I can't possibly fight off this many, even if they are only children, but having been a Boy Scout myself once, I know how to outsmart them. Watch out, I'll breathe my illness on you. I am so convincing that I can actually see my breath, a green dragon fog. Scary. I have VD, do you know what that is? The Scouts are speechless, wide-eyed. None of them know, so I tell them, it's a disease that makes your DNA delivery organ fall off, and they all back away. I come to myself inside the Circle L, stretch out across plastic milk crates in a cool dark nook near the front counter. I feel tired and the nausea is gone. I attempt to sit up. No luck. I can't quite get my arms to operate. A set of tough, wizened hands helps me the rest of the way. Looky here, he's alive after all. Gazing down at me, sweat-stained Stetson shoved back on his balding head, stands Cowboy Roy. How long have I been here? Oh, not long, about 10 minutes. I saw you when you sat down out there on the road. We had a heck of a time getting you into the Bevomobile. We? I look around and see the Boy Scouts. They have escaped from my dream, clearly a troubling development. The Scouts eye me warily, taking care to stay far away from my mouth, source of the green dragon fog. Cowboy Roy does not recognize their fear. He only sees them as another audience. That's right, boys, the Bevomobile, he says. It's a movie star car, a white 1959 Cadillac convertible outfitted with rawhide seat covers, 6-shooter door handles, and a set of polished longhorns mounted on the hood. I've been driving it since 1961, when I made my last movie, By the Guns Forgot. You boys ever seen that one? Blank stares. Well, they show it on the UHF station sometime on Sunday afternoons. Watch for it. Now regarding the Bevomobile, it is one of my most prized possessions, that and my trusty Bisley. Roy reaches into a rhinestone-studded holster and comes up with a 6-shooter he inherited from his grandfather. A sheriff in turn of the century stranger's rest. Turn of the century stranger's rest. He gives the pearl-handled gun a quick twirl with his finger. I'll be wearing this on stage Saturday night, he says. I always like to have the big iron on my hip when I do the radio ranch for my fans. I heard tell you're going to sell it, says Odie Cowan, owner of the Circle L. Roy spins around and stares. Who'd you hear tell that? Oh yeah, it's all over. That gun collector from Waco was in here last week. Told me he'd heard about your famous old broken-down 6-shooter. For some fool reason he wanted to buy it. Mayor Toots, Ted Will, picks up on the story too. That's right, I heard he was going to pay you a whole bushel of money for it. Cowboy Roy sets his jaw hard and shakes his head at the smiling men. He was a thief and an idiot, he says quietly. Why? What do you mean, Roy? Why, what do you mean, Roy? Didn't he make you a fair offer? Odie asked, winking at me. Everyone in town already knew what happened and what Cowboy Roy thought of it. He offered me $2,000, Cowboy Roy says through clenched teeth. I figure it's worth 10 times that, so that makes him a thief, and if he'd bothered to check around, he'd know it weren't for sale. So that makes him an idiot. $2,000 sounds like a mighty fair price to me, Toots says. After all, it's just a wore-out old gun. Wore out, Cowboy roars, Cowboy Roy roars. Why, I'll have you know that gun is priceless and famous at that. It was given to my granddaddy by the Texas Attorney General for his service cleaning out Pancho Villa and his boys down in South Texas. Kit Carger and Bigfoot Wallace was at the ceremony. My granddaddy wore that gun the whole time he was sheriff back here, and he kept on wearing it after that, right up to his dying day. Oh, well, I didn't know about all that, Toots remarks, though, of course, he knows. All the old folks in town know the story of Grandpappy Thornton's Bisley revolver because Cowboy Roy has been inflicting it on them since they were kids. Wore out, Cowboy Roy repeats, oblivious to the choked laughs around him. Roy turns his attention again to me. You didn't look too good when we carried you in here, he explains. Odie didn't want me to bring you in. He was afraid you might die here. Be bad for business. The store owner stiffens as he sacks up a quart of milk and a pack of Marlboros for a tired-looking pregnant woman with a baby on board t-shirt. As soon as the door closes behind her, though, he slams the cash register drawer and spins around on Cowboy Roy. I just thought it might be something serious, that he ought to go to the hospital. Well, looks like he's going to pull through after all, so why don't you quit making excuses and brew us up some fresh coffee? Roy winks at me and whispers he didn't want a dead body contaminating the moon pies and ranch-style beans. Odie disappears into the back room to secure another can of coffee, leaving Roy without an audience, an untenable situation. Roy's eyes quickly light on the far booth of the restrooms where 80-year-old Toots Ted Will is finishing up crossword from the morning paper. Yeah, Odie's just a broken-down old woman, Roy says, not a young, good-looking cuss like me. Toots doesn't look up from his paper. I need a 4-letter word for... Now look out, Roy warns him. We got a member of the press here today. You ought to take it easy on needling Odie. He says he's thinking about charging for coffee. Roy affects a look of shock. No free coffee, but it's always been free. It's a tradition. You can't buy a cup of coffee in Stranger's Rest. Yeah, well, Odie don't much care about that tradition, Toots says. He said, if I start charging for coffee, Roy's the only one cheap enough to quit coming. It'd be a real win-win for everybody. I try to smile, but I still felt too weak. Roy gives me a quizzical look. I've never passed out like that, I explain. Shoulda took him to the hospital, Odie shouts from the back of the store. We were a bit worried, Roy admits. We even called your wife, Allison. A fresh wave of nausea washes over me. I could almost see her at the beach house in Maine, roused from sleep by my in-laws. Can't Mark take care of himself for one day? I told her she didn't need to worry, though, Roy adds. You were just sleeping off a drunk. Then he starts laughing, slapping his hat against his leg in exchange for my being a good sport, though Roy buys me a plastic bottle of orange juice and a Twinkie, just what I need to bring my blood sugar back to nominal operating levels. I rise from the milk crates without assistance. Roy opens the door with one hand and jingles the change in his pocket with the other, searching for his car keys. Odie returns from the car back room with a carafe of water, which he pours into the top of Mr. Coffee. You don't have to put up with this carrying on, he says. Roy's not nearly as funny as he thinks he. What do you know about humor? Roy replies. I'm the professional entertainer, remember? I once shared a bottle of Jack Daniels with Slim Pickens. I remember, the whole town remembers. You don't give nobody a chance to forget. I want that coffee ready when I get back. Roy smiles and gives me another conspiratorial wink. But Odie doesn't see the smile or wink. His is squinting at the open door, his attention focused on something outside, something up in the sky.